Okay.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah, I'm happy to record. Yesterday I forgot, and I felt bad about that. So we're gonna get Stacy a recording of every class to help support her. Okay, in your training tutorials, one of the classes is called Approving Travel Requests and Expense Reports, right? So you can approve travel requests. You can approve travel requests for less than the amount requested. You can approve or reject a travel expense report. And then these last few are about business expense reports. And, we don't teach business expense with an instructor. The class is down here at the bottom, creating business expense requests and reports. And of course, business requests are typically non-travel related. And it's something like you had to buy a piece of equipment, or you spent money on postage, or there's all kinds of things, right? Expenses that employees incur that they then need to be reimbursed for. So that documentation is in the business expense and request class down here. So let's get started with approving a travel request. Okay. So we're going to open a travel request. It's for an out-of-state trip. We're going to review all the potential expenses for adherence to UMB policy and approve the travel request. There are 3 approvers at a minimum for an employee travel request. It is the travel administrator, and they review travel requests to make sure the request is in compliance with policy. Then you have the supervisor who approves to ensure that the timing of the trip is accurate. Can Laura be gone for 2 weeks during this period? And then the cost center approver reviews it for fiscal and budget expectations. Now, all of the approvers should be reviewing everything. We know supervisors aren't experts on policy. Travel administrator is more of an expert on policy, but certainly any one of these 3 approvers who see something wrong should address it. So let's say that the supervisor notices the funding source is incorrect. Don't approve it and just pass it on and say, well, the cost center approver can figure that out, right? So all 3 approvers really have the duty of making sure the timing is correct, it complies with policy if they see anything out of the ordinary, and that the funding sources are appropriate for the expense types. Approvers are not able to add expense types. So if you notice that the traveler is missing an expense type, the travel request should be returned to the traveler to add that expense type. And we ask that you add a meaningful comment. And a meaningful comment is something like, you are missing the conference expense type. Please add it and also attach the conference brochure and agenda, something like that. Really, your comments are meant to educate the person so that he gets it right the next time. We're all on a learning curve, and I think we can agree that the system is much different than our prior system. Approvers can approve a different amount than what the traveler entered by entering a new amount. You can only do this on the travel request. You can't do it on an expense report, and that makes sense, right?
That's what I was asking for yesterday. Yeah. So it is just the request. Okay.
You can only do it on the request because on the expense, the person has a receipt to back up what they spent. So does that make sense?
Well, yesterday I had someone who had a receipt, but it included something that is not allowable, like a premium upgrade for airfare. So I wanted to be able to reduce it myself because I saw where the error was, but it wouldn't let me. So I was looking, all over, went through the tutorials and all that, but I couldn't find it. So it is just the
Yeah.
request. Okay.
Yes, and you know what, Dawn, good example. That's an example of when you should send that back and say, there are charges on your air ticket that aren't allowed. Please reduce the amount on your expense report.
Yes, that's what I did. Yeah.
Oh, good job. Okay. Um,
I couldn't
no,
find
I
any
mean,
way
this
to
is a,
do anything
yeah,
with it.
this is a lot to remember and it's a lot
Yeah.
to figure out, but good
That's why I
job.
said we did it so far long ago. That's why I was taking this again as a refresher.
Yes, I'm glad you are. And anybody in any department can take any one of these classes now. So if you know someone is struggling or doing things incorrectly, tell them get signed up.
Okay.
All right. Help yourself out. Tell your department, you really need to go to training. Um, now, if you change anything on a travel request, the traveler is going to get a notification about the approval, and it says something like, uh, approved with changes. Okay. You can return something, but what we're asking you to do is review the entire travel request or expense report before you click return or reject, because if you return it on the first thing that you see that's incorrect, they might have other things wrong. And we just don't want multiple returns on a request if we can avoid it. And just so you know, your trainer has done that. I've returned something and then noticed, and when I'm practicing, and then noticed something else I should have addressed. So go all the way through the travel form, and just jot down whatever you see and then return it at the end of the review. You are able to edit the funding source or add an additional funding source. And in this document, there are links to the other tutorials to tell you how to do that. Every approver should review all the attachments for a travel request, and every approver should review all the comments. Okay. The comments tell you why something was done. And I'll just tell you, the comments is, they're small. They don't jump out of the page. They're over on the left-hand side at the bottom, and, it might just say, missing receipt. I mean, it could be very small. So read the whole screen. Get used to doing that. Every approver should also review the allocation of the funding sources. And if you're not sure that it's actually correct, just hold on to that and go find out, and then you can come back. In other words, you could open a request to approve it multiple times without actually approving it. If the traveler has personal travel indicated on the travel request, then there should be an explanation in the header. There should be dates of personal travel listed there, and any expense information has to be accounted for. I do have a UPK, a tutorial that shows you what the traveler is supposed to do on the request side and also on the expense. Here's an example. Flew out on Friday, or flew out on Thursday, spent the weekend tootling around the city, and then Monday through Wednesday, they had a conference. The traveler needs to deduct the Thursday or Friday and Saturday and Sunday from every expense, right? And on the request, they need to show you that they understand this isn't getting paid for, right? So the flight on Sunday night costs way less than the flight on Friday. The person should be documenting that for you. You can go through that tutorial and see how it's done, but as an approver, you're looking for documentation that shows that the traveler understands that these 3 days of travel are personal. They're not getting reimbursed on the request. On the expense side, if they have a hotel receipt and their wife or husband or children traveled with them, they might have one hotel receipt, but they have 2 rooms, one for the kids and one for themselves. They need to reduce that. And so all they have to do is just kind of show you on the receipt that they know what to reduce the amount themselves, right? They don't have to just calculate it. Okay, there was a $2 charge per person in the hotel. So $2 would be the traveler, and then the other, $8 is the family. They need to go line by line and show you that they need to reduce that on the expenses. Non-employee travel only requires a travel admin and a cost center approval. Non-employees can travel. If you have to set up a non-employee, there's a great document that shows you exactly what you need to do. It's on the business applications page under Concur Travel and Expense under training. Don't forget that that training page has a million references, job aids on it for you, and links to recordings that you can take advantage of. But there's a job aid, non-employee travel, that shows you what you should do, how to set up a non-employee to get them ready to travel. If the travel admin is also a cost center approver, they will only receive the item to approve one time. So I'm in a department, I'm a travel admin. We do have a supervisor, but I'm also the cost center approver. I'm only going to get the item once. So it'll come to me and I'll do both jobs at the same time. Look at it for budgetary expectations and look at it for compliance. And then I'll move it on and it'll go to the supervisor. But then it doesn't come to me a second time. Okay, visa fees cannot be added as a business expense anymore. So you can't get your visa or your passport paid for through a business expense request or report. Visa and passports the expense has to be attached to an international travel request. Okay. If you're wondering, per diem is only used when the trip is overnight. That's it. Per diem is calculated by Concur. It's based on the destination, city of the trip, and the number of days. And the system also reduces the amount by the first and last day of travel, right? First and last day of travel is reduced by 25%. The system does that. On a request, you're going to see a lump sum. We have an expense type called reimbursement reduction, and you can use that, or the traveler can use that, to go ahead and add the reimbursement reduction expense type for any expense that they need to reduce. Okay, that includes per diem. Travel day meal expense type is only used when there's no overnight stay. We're just trying to make this clear as a bell for people. If you are on a day trip, even if you're on a day trip that's out of state, so let's say you drive to Pennsylvania and then you drive home, but you don't stay overnight, any meals would be a day travel expense. A business meal expense is only used when the meal is with another person who's not an employee of UMB. Okay, a business meal is allowed for trips that are overnight or just for the day. But let's say that you took a colleague out to lunch, right? A colleague from another university or something. You took that person out to lunch. You need to reduce your per diem for that lunch and then add a business meal expense type. When you add a business meal, and you'll see this, the system is going to say, who did you eat with? Okay. If no travel is involved, for example, if a faculty member is coming to campus and a UMB employee takes that person to lunch, that does not go on a travel request form. It just goes on a business expense form. All right, now I'm logged in. This demonstration, I was logged in as an approver, so I have an approval tab at the top. If you are an approver and you don't have this approval tab at the top, you don't have the approver role. That's key, okay? So I'm just pointing that out for new people. There are a couple ways you could get inside a request to approve it. One is by clicking this approvals tab at the top, and then you'll see a list of things that you need to approve. You can click the tab that says required approvals and see the number 80. Hopefully this doesn't happen to you. We were, of course, generating a lot of data when we were getting ready for training. So, but you can click here, or you can use the My Tasks down at the bottom of your screen, right? I'm going to start from the required approvals button right here. And when I click that, this is what you'll see. Very, very typical. You'll have two tabs. Requests will be on one tab and expense reports will be on another tab. And since we're talking about requests, we're just going to click the request tab. And now here's everything that was in my workbox to approve. So I'm going to come down to this one and click the link. Everywhere that you see a request name or request ID or anything in blue, that is typically a hyperlink to the transaction. So I'm going to click right on the request name and open that request. Now, attachments are all going to be at the header level on a request. So you would see a piece of paper icon here and you would click it and then you would have some choices: view documents, remove documents, attach documents. So you would just click right on attachments and then say view attachments or view documents. If an attachment is missing, again, just continue to review and jot it down, and then you'll be able to say you were missing an attachment. Oh, and also these other things are wrong. If you have the attachment because you have more than one traveler going to the same conference or event, it's fine. You can just attach it for them. All right. Under request details, if you click this link, there's going to be a link to the header, and it's important that you come to the header and look at what they've said about the trip. So I'm going to click request header, and I see that they're planning to book in Concur. Here's the request name. Here's when they're going to be gone, the 28th through the 30th. What's the purpose of the trip? Research, out of state, faculty as the traveler type. Okay. Again, down here it says, does this trip include personal travel? If they answer yes, they need personal dates of travel in this field, and they also need some additional information here. And if it's too much information, they can scroll down to another field and add comments. Okay. I'm going to scroll down and show you. Here's the project SOAP F. This is actually a project number. And you can tell it's a project because the word SOAP F is not in this field. Okay, it's not in this field. But projects do have SOAP Fs attached to them in the background that you may not even be aware of. And so this is the funding source that they've chosen, and this will apply to the whole request unless the person has allocated part of the funding or to another funding source. When you look at this funding information, if the purpose is all fives, that means the traveler has not updated this information and it should not be approved. Okay. A purpose number of all fives indicates that this SOAP-F that they're using is a travel clearing account. okay? A travel clearing account. A travel clearing account is based on the employee's home org payroll clearing account, okay? So just keep your eye on this. If this says all fives, that is not the right funding source. Now, down at the bottom, if someone needs to do some explaining, they have a lot more room, comments to or from approvers that they can add here. And I haven't made any changes, so I'm just going to click cancel. Right. Now I'm going to look at the allocation summary. How was this allocated? I'm going to click request details again, and then click allocation summary, and it's going to show me the summary is always by dollar amounts, not by percent. Okay, the summary will always show you dollars, but now you can see that $1,545 are being charged to this sponsored project. Departmental SOAP F. Okay, this is being charged to a SOAP F. Okay, so this is where, whoops. Am I offline?
No, you're good.
You're good.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that little snafu. So yeah, use this request details and look at the header, look at any allocation. And then you're just going to go right down the line, right down the rows, and look at what they asked for. Over here on the right-hand side, there's columns: amount, requested amount, and approved amount. And you're going to see how these change when I reduce something. So I'm just going to start with the first one, the air ticket. And I'm going to look it over, see the amount. There should be a payment method here, how they're paying. I have a choice. I can either click cancel and come back out to the main screen, or I could just use the next button right here at the top on the left-hand side, this next arrow, to move to the next expense. Okay. So after I review this, I'm going to click next. Here's the hotel reservation. Scroll down, look it over, see if there's any comments. If everything's okay, I'm going to click next. Here's the car rental. If someone is traveling to a foreign country and they've added car rental, it's highly recommended that no one rents a car in a foreign country. Big problems. Okay, so you can let them know that. You can check with the travel group if you're concerned about a car rental. All right, I'm going to look over the car rental. You can see that the object code is visible on every expense type. Look this over, click next. Here's the personal car mileage. The approved amount is $16.88. This was generated by the system for the number of miles to go from this location, 2101 Harford Road, down to the BWI and back, okay? 27 miles, and the system calculated it. And at the bottom, you can see the reimbursement rate. This is a little old because the reimbursement rate is 0.655 now, I believe. Okay. Now, where you see an allocate button, this expense type could be allocated, right? This could be one of the ones that is not being charged to the sponsored project. So if you see this allocate button, go ahead and click on it and see how it was allocated. I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to click on allocate, and here is the actual allocation screen. Dawn, have you ever done this before?
No.
Have you split any
Oh,
funding? Okay.
no, I've looked at it. I haven't had to do it.
Oh, okay. Well, the top of the screen, we call this above the line and below the line. That's not a technical term that you need to memorize. That's just what we call it. This is above the line, and this is the main funding source from the header. Anything below the line is an additional funding source that that they've added. And you can see that the expense is $16.88. And then the percentage of that expense being charged to the new funding source is 100%, right? Above the line, we have 0. Below the line, we have 100%. So 100% of this $16 charge is going to go to their departmental revolving account, this SOAP-F. Okay. To add a funding source, you could click add if you needed to update that. If you wanted to edit this, you could click right on the checkbox, and when you select the checkbox for the line item, the edit and remove buttons will become active. So that's how you could manage this if you saw something incorrect. Now I'm just going to click the cancel button. I just wanted to look at the allocation for this mileage. You noticed on the hotel and the air and the car, there was no allocation button because those travel segments have to be allocated to the same funding source. And on the request, it has to be the funding source in the header. So that begs the question, what's the correct funding source to use on the header? The one that I'm splitting off, or the one that needs to address hotel, air, car, and train? Do you see my point? Am I making it confusing? Hotel, car, air, and train travel, all on the request, have to be allocated to the exact same source. So there was no allocate button there. But on these other miscellaneous type charges, you'll see an allocate button. And when you see that button, you should check. All right, we looked at the car mileage. I'm going to click the next arrow. Here's parking. Again, there's that allocate button. There's a comment. There's no comments here. This is where I would make a comment as an approver. But look at where the comments are. Lower left-hand corner in just very basic. This font isn't even as big as the rest of the fonts. So I'm kind of trying to point out to you that there may be comments on an expense type, but you have to look for them. So I'm just pointing that out. Okay. So he has asked for parking, $22 a day at BWI. This was me, by the way. I didn't know you couldn't park in that nice daily parking for $22 a day at BWI. And he's asked for $66. So we're just going to go ahead with this. Click next, because in the next example, I'm going to show you how to reduce this amount. Right? So I'm just going to click next. Here are the tolls. And again, here are the comments, and they're very small, and it's down in the lower left-hand side, but this is the person who made the comment. And this is a fake person, and they're asking for $6, $3 down, and $3 back. Okay. You could, again, you see allocate, the button here, you could again click this and look at where the $6 charge is being charged to. So I'm going to click next. And again, here's per diem. Now, per diem is calculated by the system. So do not reduce the per diem here. What the traveler should do is use an expense type called reimbursement reduction. It used to be called per diem reduction, and then they changed the name. So we don't want to reduce what the system generated. We want to add an expense type called reimbursement reduction and take care of it there. Okay. So I'm just going to click next. And here we go. Per diem reduction. Now, the new name for this is reimbursement reduction. Okay, reimbursement reduction. And they've reduced it by $75. And then down at the bottom, they have said 3 meals will be provided by Atlanta University, right? So they just rounded it off like, okay, that'd probably be about $25, right, per day. And what they're looking at, the traveler, is something like this. It's $185 for the 3 days of the trip. And so there's 3 meals a day. So this person's taking an educated guess and reducing it by $75 to accommodate 3 meals that he's getting for free. Okay. I'm going to click next. This is a miscellaneous expense type. This miscellaneous expense type could be for anything that doesn't fit in another category, but it has to be a valid expense, right? So this miscellaneous expense type should always have a comment, always. And down in the lower left-hand corner, you can see that the traveler said, I'm going to spend about $45 making copies of research to everyone in the lab. Okay, so he knows there's going to be this out-of-pocket expense. The research that he wants to copy is colored, it's slides and it's some text, and it's going to cost a little bit of money, and also it's a lot to travel with. So instead of me taking a suitcase or a travel bag full of research, right, he may want to do it there. So this is his explanation for this miscellaneous expense type. Okay, if you didn't add any comments, you can either save or cancel, but the next button is grayed out because we are at the end of the expenses. So you can't go forward anymore. So I didn't make a change here, and I'll just click cancel. Okay, and now I'm right back out here at the beginning again, and I'm just going to click approve. Okay, you always get this approver agreement. I certify that the expenses in this request have been approved and that they comply with policy, and then you'll click accept and continue, and that will drop off your work list. Okay, I saw a flurry of activity in the chat. Is there anything that we need to address in the chat?
No, we were just talking about the segments and the allocation on the segments.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're going to do this a little more quickly than the first one. Really, you just open the item and you go line by line by line and make sure they have, you know, documented what they're asking for, attached any brochure or conference agenda or something like that to justify the trip. And now we're going to see what happens when you approve for less than the requested amount. And this could also be because the traveler might have put in an allocation of the travel admin, but you as the cost center approver are looking at it and saying, we're only allowed $500 a month on our contract for our sponsored grant per month, right? I can only spend $500 per month and toward the and charge it to the sponsored project. So that may be a reason that you need to reduce some expenses. Okay, again, your approvals are accessed in one of 3 ways. I'm going to use the approval tab this time. And now I have requests pending my approval. Here's a good one for Dawn. You could click the approvals tab and you could change this limit results to items that you have approved, right? This is a quick way to get to the requests that you have already approved. So this box, limit results to pending, request pending approval can be changed so you can look back on things that you already did. Okay, I'm going to open this request and see the little blue chat box next to the request. That tells me that the traveler has left some comments for me. So I'm just going to click right on the name, which is a link, and I'm going to run down the expenses again, just like I did last time. So I'm going to start with the hotel. Now, make sure you go to the header and make sure you look for any allocation. This demo really is just about reducing amounts. So I'm going to click the hotel reservation. They've asked for $750. Here's that expected payment field right here. Expected payment method. Okay. Now, sometimes on the request, they're taking a guess. Well, I think I'm going to pay for this out of pocket. And then in reality, their travel admin who has a P card puts it on the P card. That would be something the traveler needs to indicate on the expense report. On the request, he's taking a guess because he hasn't booked yet about how it will be paid. All right, you look it over, look at the amounts and the dates, and click next. Here is taxi. Remember, Uber and Lyft can be requested under the taxi expense type, but he's asked for $150. And I'm as approver going, where are you going in a cab? And so here's his comments down below in the lower left-hand corner, $75 each way from O'Hare to downtown Chicago. And literally it could probably cost that much. But I'm going to say, I'm going to approve 120. Okay. And then you as an approver need to leave a comment on why you reduced that amount, because the traveler is going to get a notification approved with changes, and he's going to want to know why. Now I'm leaving these blank so I can show you what the system does when I don't make a comment. Okay. I'm just going to click save. I'm going to go down to the airline ticket. When you use the next button, it will forward to the next expense. When you click save, it returns you back out here to the line items. Okay, that's the difference in the navigation. So I'm going to open the air ticket and look it over. All right, if you see some inordinate amount, you're going from Baltimore to Chicago and your plane ticket is $1,200. He's probably, maybe he's looking at first class, who knows, right? But there's the expected payment method that you should be looking at also. And if this is fine, just go ahead and click next. Here's the per diem, $197.50. You know that per diem is derived from the government rates, and you shouldn't be changing this. If you need to change it, tell the person to add the reimbursement reduction expense type, okay, and reduce it himself or herself. All right, so I'm just going to go past per diem, click next. Here's parking, okay? And here's where I tried to park in the daily parking, and I got rejected. You can only park in the long term, etc., if you leave your car at the airport. So the approved amount says 66. That's just the system saying, well, he asked for 66 in the amount column, and if you save, I'm going to approve 66. Okay, so we're going to reduce that to $36, and then I'm going to tell the traveler, you cannot use daily parking, right? I'll approve $12 daily, okay? And then click save. Now I'm going to go down to the business meal, and he's asked for $150 for dinner. Now in Chicago, you know, it could cost that much, but where's he eating, right? Like Gordon Ramsay's, or why does it cost so much? So you can just tell the traveler, he has said dinner with candidate, and you can say, I'll approve 125, and then let's see what you actually spend. It's okay to have money left over in a travel request when the traveler does his expense report. Remember, the request is a guess, and the expense report is the actual expenses. Okay, so now you should leave a comment here about why you reduced it. We're gonna skip a comment, and then the system's gonna tell us to correct this. Right, so I changed an amount, so I have to click save. And now the last expense is internet online fees. And let's say the traveler looked up the hotel for the conference or the recruiting or wherever he's staying, and he saw that the hotel does charge $15 a day for internet. This is not required of every request. It's not required, but it helps document what you're spending money on. Okay, now we haven't made any changes here, and you can see that the next button, the next arrow is grayed out. So I can just click cancel and come back here. And now I have some alerts, right? I didn't have any alerts when I started. So I'm going to pop open this section. And here's what it said. You changed an amount. Please make sure that you entered a comment. Okay. So just as an example, I'm going to look at the business meal where I didn't leave a comment, and I can get back to the business meal through this view link. So I'll click view, and I'm back in here, and now I'm going to tell the traveler what's wrong with his request. Above allowance for business dinner. Okay, and then I'll click save. Now you can, warnings don't stop you from doing anything. They do not stop you. Okay, but let's look at his line items. We have an amount, we have a requested amount, and then we have an approved amount. And so you can see that these have been reduced. The taxi was reduced. Down farther, the airport parking was reduced, and the business meal was reduced. And this is exactly the item. This is exactly the way it's going to look for the traveler when he opens it back up. Okay, so I'm going to click approve and then accept and continue, and I'm done with that demo. Right? Any questions that we didn't get answered or addressed? Okay.
Yeah, I think you have anything.
Go ahead. No, John?
Nope, nothing pending right now.
Okay. All right. The last one we're going to do is called approving or rejecting a travel expense report. This is the screen where a coworker looked at my screen and said, "Why does it look like that?" And I said, you know, she's like, "Can you make that bigger?" I said, "This is what it looks like. It's the font is tiny, right? So the expense report doesn't look like the request much at all." Okay, in this scenario, I'm going to get started with required approvals. I can see there's only one, and I'm going to click right on it, and it's an expense report. And so I'm going to click right on the name. I didn't mention this, but this is true, that you will receive emails saying approval required, Laura Poliano, expense report, and then the name of the report, and then a link just to get into Concur. Okay, so you don't have to guess. You are going to receive emails that say you have something to review. Okay, there's an exception section at the top, and this is really busy, and it has the same statements over and over for these expenses. So you can look at this exception, right? There's a vertical scroll to the right. If we scroll over, look at this. there's a vertical scroll bar. So there's a lot of exceptions. Now, these are exceptions. These are not errors. So just read through them and do what it is telling you for the system. Okay. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit and look at all of them. And really what we're looking at is, let's take the first expense type, conference. This expense entry exceeds the approved amount. Okay, right? I thought I was going to spend $365, and then I didn't get approval to go until I missed that early bird window. So it actually cost me $400, right? On the parking, the next one, you can see it says this expense might be a duplicate. You can create multiple expense reports from one approved request. Can anyone think of an example of when you might have multiple expense reports but only one request? Here's a good example. A doctor does clinics and he goes to the same 4 places every single week with mileage, and a couple of them are kind of far away and he wants to get reimbursed for his mileage. So his travel administrator might put in kind of a blanket, right? A blanket request saying, I need to be approved from this trip or this place to this place, with multiple days, right? And it's good for an entire month, right? It is an approved amount for a month of this travel and this mileage and the tolls that come with traveling to these various clinics. And so the doctor might not want to wait a month to get reimbursed for everything, or 3 months, right? So the request can be broader than just a single mileage down and back. It could be, I need mileage for a couple months approved. And then as he takes the trips, the travel administrator or him can create expense reports to get him reimbursed in a timely manner, right? So let's say he has a request that's for 3 months of mileage or some kind of travel, and every 2 weeks, the travel admin creates an expense report off that same request. So if you see a warning like this expense might be a duplicate, just make sure that there aren't really 2 expense reports that are identical for the same dates, okay? The date would tell you the truth, right? Okay. Now I'm going to click the Details tab, and then I'm going to select Allocations. Okay, look at what the allocation screen looks like. It does not look like your request. And this is where my coworker said, what is wrong with your screen? And I said, this is what it looks like, okay? Tiny. So if I want to look at the allocation for everything, all of these expense types, I can click the top checkbox because it is select all, okay? And then I could just say, let me see if this person charged it correctly. The conference was supposed to go to their departmental SOAP-F, a revolving account, and the parking also, but the hotel, air, and train should have been expensed to the project. So you can look at all of them or some of them, and you do it just with selecting the checkbox. All right, now I'm going to select summary. And this is a summary of the expense report funding source. So this is $1,015, all being charged to this general appropriation source in my department, for example. You're going to use this how you need to, but and every example will be different. Okay, now you have the ability to edit or allocate funding sources. So you would click the checkbox for whichever ones you want to allocate. Then you would go up here to the allocate selected expenses, and then you would just complete the fields. And the fields are not a surprise. They either have sponsored project data in them or they have a SOPF. And if you change anything, this save button in the lower right-hand corner will become active. Okay. It's grayed out right now, but if you changed an allocation, this would be active, excuse me, on the screen where it says save. Okay, I'm just going to click done. Now I'm going to look for receipts. So I'm going to click the receipts. I can do that up here with the receipt link, and I can also do it on an individual expense. So down on the bottom, if you look at hotel expense type, I can see that there's a receipt attached there. For airfare, I can see there's a receipt attached and also a comment. Okay. So let me use this receipt link at the top, and I have some choices. So you can review the receipts in a new window, in the current window, or you could attach a receipt for the traveler. Okay. I'm just going to say, let me look at the receipts in a new window, and it's going to pop this open, and they're all in here, not one at a time, all of them, right? So I would scroll down through this PDF of receipts and look at all of them. To me, I think it's easier to go line by line, look at the hotel receipt, look at the airfare receipt, etc. When I'm done with this, I can just click the close button in the upper right-hand corner. All right, now we're just going to go line by line. I'm going to click on the hotel. And when I click on the hotel, I have 3 tabs on the right-hand side. If you don't have any tabs, you've hidden them. That's it. All you did was hide it. If you can see these 2 small arrows, this is like expand and hide, right? I got a question about this right away, and I thought, why don't they have any tabs? And then I realized they just accidentally hid them. Okay, so on the expense tab, you're going to be looking for that payment type, right? Here's the hotel expense type. Here's the transaction date. That's the date it was paid for. Okay, here's the vendor. Here's the payment type, and here's the amount. This payment type is important. If it says out of pocket, this $200 is going to go in the employee's payroll check, right? So make sure this payment type is correct. And how do you verify that? You look at the receipt, right? You look at the receipt, and you can see that it was charged to your P card, but he forgot to change the payment type to P card and left it as out of pocket. This would be a reason to return this report, because you can see this is grayed out and you can't change it. Okay. You can look at the approved amounts on the expense tab. You can look right at the receipt image, or you can look at the summary. You need to look at all 3 tabs, and also down at the bottom, you have a little link, lower right-hand corner, in the smallest type possible, attach receipt button. Okay, so you could attach the receipt. Let's look at the receipt image. You're going to look through this and say, you know what, this was paid by a credit card, and this is his credit card. Okay. All right. Then you're going to move to the next expense type, airfare. Now, this has a warning. That's probably not good news, but this warning says, hey, you are requesting, you have airfare on this report, and first of all, it exceeds the amount of the approved request, and secondly, it requires approval by Dawn Rhodes, who is the Chief Financial Business Officer, CFBO. She's a VP for finance and administration, right? So she's the top of finance and administration because you don't have a travel reservation. The system knows you put airfare on an expense report, but you didn't book anything in Concur, and your booking type says book in Concur, and or you didn't use the travel agency. Okay, so that's what these warnings are about. Now, again, on airfare, make sure the payment method is correct. Make sure the payment type is correct. And you would do the same thing. Look at the expense tab, look at the receipt, make sure that receipt matches that payment type and amount. Okay. And down here where it says train, you see that you could allocate, right? You could go ahead and allocate any expense that has the allocate button in an expense report. So we're going to just pop open train, right? This expense may be a duplicate. Okay, we know it's not. This expense entry exceeds the approved amount. Well, that's because it cost $204 or something, right? Instead of 200. All right, to drop down to the conference workshop fees, and this expense entry exceeds the approved amount. There should be comments for you. Again, you're going to look at all three tabs and see if there's a comment on why they overspent what was approved. And then you're going to do the same thing with parking. This expense might be a duplicate. Okay. This expense entry exceeds the approved amount request, and there should be a comment. Okay. Now, on the expense tab for any of these expenses, when you scroll to the bottom, you can see what the approved amount was, right? The request, where it says request, that was the requested amount. All right. Now, if you need to send it back to the user, you could click send back to user. And when you do that, you are forced to enter a comment. So please make it meaningful. Okay. Or you can click approve and read your approver agreement and click accept. Okay. What are the things you need to look for on the expense report? You need to look at the payment type. You need to make sure that the payment type, if it's out of pocket, they have a receipt proving they spent that. So what's the receipt need to say? It needs to have the person's, credit card number on it. People don't like this idea, but if you're an approver and you can't tell if that is a P card for a hotel or the traveler's out of pocket, just ask, right? What's the last four digits of your credit card, right? Used to purchase this. Okay, so the payment type, the amount has to match the receipt, and make sure that there's no duplicates and that they have a receipt for everything they need a receipt for. All right, well, that's the class, guys. I'm going to stop sharing. And does anyone have any questions? Go, be careful, go slowly. Just because we have an electronic system, that doesn't let us out of the fact that we may need to make a phone call. You could call the traveler, you could email them and say, you said out of pocket, but this looks like your department's P card. So how did you actually pay for the hotel? Right? Are there any questions before we end the class? I want to make sure that you feel comfortable with this. You can always put in a help ticket, help@umaryland.edu. We are getting
Laura, I
here.
do have one
Yes.
question.
Okay.
If the traveler has coded to say 2 different SOAP Fs for 2 different departments, does both departments get in the workflow to approve their piece, or is it just all go to who owns that particular traveler.
It goes to who owns that traveler. Good description, Dawn. And you
Okay.
know what? I think you're the first person that's asked me this in all this teaching. Because in quantum financials, we're, some of the transactions you do, you're routing it to a different department because you've put information in quantum about the org. And
Right.
quantum is looking at the project owning org for where to route it. But this is based on travel admin for your department, supervisor, right? And
Right.
cost center approver in the org. The cost center
Okay.
approver is attached to the org. Now, there's nothing to say that you couldn't print or share it and say, this is what's getting charged to your department. Just wanted you to know, right? I don't know, John, do you have anything to add to that?
Right, the travel admin will be the same, it'll just be one. The supervisor will be the person that is approving your timesheet. And then the cost center approver, it should go to both. It should go to both owners of the org on the SOPEFs that you're using to split the costs out. So sometimes if I'm using a pretty obscure SOPEF because someone volunteered to do that, when I submit it as a traveler, I'm going to send them an email and say, be on the lookout for this, because it may come to them and they think I don't have anything to approve, but they do. When you're splitting a couple $1,000s between two orgs, both CCAs are going to have to look at that and approve it. And make sure, if you are the approver, the CCA approver, open those the receipts, because Concur will record that you opened the receipts, you reviewed them, and an auditor, when they go through, will look at it and say, well, you didn't look at any of the receipts, any of the backup documentation. So make sure whoever's approving it as the CCA, well, all of them, open up the receipts and make sure they match the expenses.
Now, John, are you saying that if she splits the funding, both cost center approvers will receive the item? Like it would go to
Yes.
Dawn first, for example, and then it would go to me?
It will go to, I'm not sure where Dawn fits. I think Dawn is the final approver after.
I'm a CCA.
Yeah,
That's
But-
what I'm saying, like two CCAs,
yep,
and it'll be based on the allocations?
correct.
Okay, great. You know what,
Because
Dawn? You
when-
taught me something today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Hey,
it's
I
gonna
don't
be very-
mind. I do not mind.
When we
Yeah.
implement, when we implement encumbrances, it'll be very important because it's going to show up on someone's their financials as a pending obligation, as an encumbrance, and they're going to need to know what that's for. If they've approved it, they've seen it, they should not have a problem with that. So it will route to both.
Occasionally we get questions in quantum
Yeah.
financials because people have run reports and they say, what is this? What's this charge from? Right? And they see it on a report against a sponsored project or something else. But they're not the ones who did it. Someone else charged their project. So really good question, Dawn. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know
And
what?
because
I'm going to put in a little Elm article based on what Dawn asked me, because that's important for people to know. Boy, open those receipts
yeah.
so that the auditor doesn't say your approvers aren't even approving
And
correctly. Yeah.
the reason it goes to both CCAs is I could charge $1 to my org and send it to somebody else's org. And
Yeah.
I'm spending someone else's money, so they need to be aware of that. And they've given you permission to allocate half of the cost or $100 of the cost or whatever it is. When they get it in there, they'll review it and approve it.
Yeah, good question.
Yep. Otherwise, I would be charging it to anybody. I'd be
Right.
taking trips.
And encumbrances are not active right now, right?
Correct.
But when encumbrances come online, it's really going to be important that you don't encumber someone else's funds and then not release it. And then they run quantum analytics reports. All this travel data is in analytics, by the way. And they run reports and see, how do I have so much money encumbered, right? So it's going to be really important that we're super accurate. Really, thanks a ton, Dawn, for that question.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm gonna stop recording.